Some would argue that Mongoose was the bike to have after Schwinn. But how exactly did a company the size of Mongoose go from being this powerhouse of a BMX company to being considered just a run-of-the-mill bicycle alternative that you can buy at Walmart? If you do enjoy this kind of content, please like, subscribe, hit the bell notification. I thank each and every one of you guys for watching these videos. I never thought I would have over 100 subscribers. Now I'm over 12,000, and yep, I can't thank you guys enough. Let's just get into the content. Holy crap! I just did a video on GT. Link will be in a corner, and someone commented, "Look into Mongoose." Now, I've never really known much about the brand other than the surface level stuff, but their start is almost a carbon copy of GT's. Or should I say GT is a carbon copy of Mongoose. It all started with a man by the name of Skip Hess in Chatsworth, California. In the early 70s, BMX was taking off, but there was a problem. Most kids were riding Schwinn Stingrays, and they were prone to failure underneath the stress of this new sport. Hess was a fabricator and worked on drag cars, and thought he could make a better bike for his kid to race. Does this sound familiar? The only difference here was that Skip actually raced bicycles as well, whereas Gary Turner did not, and Skip was actually quite good, winning the California State Road Race Championship at one point. Skip was working at a car company called Superior, making wheels for them. That's when he took the design from motocross bikes and developed a very robust wheel for BMX, dubbed the Moto Mag. And these things took off. They were heavy as crap, but you could all but ride them without a tire on. They were freaking durable. The durability of these wheels is what directly led Skip to look into the bike frames. The Moto Mags were so durable that it was putting all the stress on the frames now, and instead of the wheels breaking, frames were failing. Enter the first Mongoose. For racing, these first-gen Mongooses, I guess because it's a brand, it would be Mongooses. Mongoose. I like that. But these things were the bee's knees. Skip got the design so perfect the first time around because he went to the racers and simply asked them, "What do you want?" This was contrary to what a lot of other big companies were doing at the time. So much like how Cannondale did later, Mongoose just went to the people that were racing these machines and asked them, "How can we make a better bike?" Also, side note, you all know I'm a fan of Tinker Juarez, and his first big team signing was riding for Mongoose. In the 80s, Mongoose was booming so much so that not only were they making their own products, they had an OEM facility that was making products for other companies. At this point, BMX racing wasn't the only game in town. A new form of freestyle BMX started to emerge. Also, side note again, I freaking love how the old Super Goose looks. That thing is a gem. Now, Mongoose, of course, was pretty highly revered in the race scene, but they hadn't really gotten into freestyle. And then, from a complete left turn, out of the, whatever that saying is, out of the left field, something like that, I don't know. I'm not a baseballer. We'll just say Mongoose did a 180, and instead of coming out with a freestyle BMX bike, they came out with a freestyle scooter? They released the Mongoose Mini Scoot, which, and this is why I don't run a company, it's contrary to what I would have done, but they freaking completely revitalized the scooter craze and essentially made scooters what they are today. These things, the Mini Scoots, what I'm talking about here, were essentially a BMX bike converted into a scooter. They're sweet, to say the least. So, where Mongoose got left behind a little in the freestyle BMX world, they made up all that distance with kind of reinvigorating this scooter craze. So at this point in Mongoose's lifespan, they're making products for other people, they've got the OEM facilities, company is doing great, they have one of the best BMX race bikes around, got left behind a little bit with the freestyle stuff, but they came out with this mini scoot that looks like it could actually be a heck of a lot of fun. I wouldn't mind finding and trying to ride one myself. But next up was the inevitable rise of mountain biking, and much to my surprise, the legendary racer John Tomac was one of the first racers Mongoose signed. The coolest thing about this era was that mountain biking was so freaking new that you would run the same bike for every discipline. hill climbs, XC racing, downhill, slalom, whatever. You were on the same bike for every discipline. And here again is where Mongoose shined by allowing Moto Mag to be an integral part of product development. They went to the professional racers and said, okay, what do you guys need? What do you want? In the mid-90s, BMX was on a bit of a downslope, but boy was the mountain bike world booming. I still remember, this was probably late 90s actually, my dad would race mountain bikes. Just for instance, now when I go to a local XC race, if we have 15 to 30 people at the local XC race, that's a good sized field. I remember my dad racing at the U.S. National Whitewater Center. Before it was the Whitewater Center, it was just considered the Catawba River Trails. They had to split his field into 2 categories because there were too many people, and his race had 75 people on the line. The other one had about the same. That's how big the categories were. So it was like, close to 150 people signed up for one local XC race. That's how big mountain biking was at that time. And dude, Mongoose had some killer racers on their team. And then from 2000 on, the quick and dirtiest Pacific Cycles bought Mongoose, who was bought by Durrell Industries, who was bought by none other than Pawn Holdings, where you can see a video on them in, again, one of these corners. So their fate and trajectory is very, very similar to GT. I'd argue Mongoose got a worse rap because they were sold in stores like Walmart as opposed to GT being sold in stores like Dick's. What happened to Mongoose? They are still around, much like GT, just in a much lower capacity than they were in their prime. And I'm starting to see a pattern here, especially with bicycle companies that came out of the BMX craze, the mountain bike craze of the 80s. These giant companies that have still stuck around, even specialized with Mike's and Yard, like the ones that stick around, the people created the companies to be a big business. And then the ones that end up getting sold are people like Gary Turner or Skip Hess, who they got into making these bicycles because they were, designers. I would go as far as to call them artists. They were inventors, engineers. Like, their true passion was the creation portion of it. It just so happened people liked the product. They were going to pay a lot of money for it, and they built a business around that. But when when Gary Turner kind of got tired of the day-to-day business aspect, he wanted out, so sold the company. Same thing with Mongoose, sold the company. Now, Mongoose and GT do still both make decent bikes. You just have to know where to find them, where to look. Whenever I talk about Mongoose or GT for that matter, and I say that I wouldn't even go as far as say they went downhill, because GT is having a resurgence, and I hope that they can really get back to where they once were. But it is undeniable that at one point in time, GT, we'll just use them as the example, they had kids' bikes, hybrids, e-bikes, full mountain bike line, like a nice cross-country bike all the way to a dirt jumper. They had road bikes, everything. They sponsored a road professional team. That's no longer the case. They pretty much just have this core small mountain bike range, which there's nothing wrong with that, but at one point in time, GT was a rival of like Cannondale as far as sales and how well they were doing. And I feel like Mongoose kind of had that same trajectory. Now, GT and Mongoose are more of just a name that's not the same company as whenever they were first kind of manifested in that. I would say peak was probably mid-90s for both of these companies. Now, I know this is a Mongoose video, so I want to end that on a high note. They do sponsor some really phenomenal riders. Mongoose has tried to make this reputation of being a fun brand, not a serious brand, if that makes sense. So they've got some pretty phenomenal people that ride their product. But there you have it. That's what happened to Mongoose. A fate very similar to GT's, almost so close to GT that it's scary. They're even owned by the same company now. So both companies started with a dude wanting to make a better product for his kid and ended up, being owned by Pawn, who might one day own every bike company, it seems. But that's for a different video. Let's keep chugging along. I will see you all in the next one. Love you. Bye-bye.